Middle layer boundaries. Just remember a house or a cube. A cube has 6 surfaces: roof, floor, anterior, posterior, medial and lateral. And just remember a house. In the roof, there will be terrace, right? T for, just remember, tegmen tymphani. In the roof, there is tegmen tymphani, bony plate. This is roof. Coming to the floor. In the floor, just remember, there will be veranda. V for vein. Internal jugular vein. In the floor, there is plate, bony plate, which separates from internal jugular vein. Then comes to anterior wall. In anterior wall, in a house, there will be entrance in the anterior side. Entrance. E for eustachian tube. T for tensor tympani muscle. And A for artery. Internal carotid artery. Anterior wall is made up of bony plate which separates from internal carotid artery, and there will be 2 openings in the entrance. On the lower side there is eustachian tube opening, and upper side there will be tensor tympani muscle opening. In between these 2 openings, this bony plate extends to the medial wall. This is called processus cochleariformis. Processus cochleariformis. This is important for the facial nerve surgery. Coming to the posterior wall. On the posterior side of the house, you have dried a cap. Cap, dry. C for chorda tympani nerve. A for auditus. P for pyramid. D, just take it like. R for recess, facial recess. I for insudis, fossa insudis. In the posterior wall, there is pyramid, right? Pyramid is the bony projection. It has an opening through which stapedius muscle passes through. Behind the pyramid, there is a space that is facial recess. Facial recess is behind the pyramid. Medial to the pyramid or medial to the facial recess, there is 7th nerve. And lateral to this, there is chorda tympani nerve. And above this, there is auditus and fossa insudis. Fossa insudis is the space through which the incus passes through. Okay. Coming to the lateral wall, just remember, on the lateral side of the house there is acacia trees. Acacia tree. A for bony posterior wall of the bony etic wall. T for tympanic membrane. And next comes the medial wall. Remember, on the medial side of the middle ear, there are window. There is a window and personal computers. Window and personal computers. The windows for oval window and a round window. P for promontory. Promontory is nothing but the cochlear basal coil bulging. C for canal for facial nerve. And S for sinus tympani. Sinus tympani is a medial to the pyramid. It is a deep recess. Above to the sinus tympani, there is subiculum. Above to the sinus tympani, there is ponticulus. Ponticulus above and subiculum below. There is oval window and round window, and there is a promontory. Promontory is a bulging. It is a bulge of the cochlear basal coil. And sinus or the sinus tympani is present. It is medial to the pyramid. Pyramid is the junction between the posterior and medial wall. Here the pyramid, it is the junction between the posterior and the medial wall. Medial to this, there is sinus tympani. This is sinus tympani. Here, the process cochleariformis travels from the anterior wall to the anterior of the oval window. Process cochleariformis. A summary: a house has a roof. In the roof there is terrace. T for tegment tympani plate, bony plate, and the floor. In the floor there is veranda. V for vein, internal jugular vein. There is a bony plate which separates from the internal jugular vein. And then comes the anterior wall. Anterior wall, remember the entrance. In the anterior wall there is entrance. E for eustachian tube. T for tensor tympani muscle. A for the artery, internal carotid artery. It has a bony plate which separates from the internal carotid artery and the two openings for eustachian tube and tensor tympani muscle. In between the two openings, the bony plate extends from the anterior wall to the anterior side of the oval window on the medial side. This is process cochleariformis. It is important for the facial nerve surgery. Coming to the posterior wall. In the posterior wall, there is a cap which is dry. That is cap dry. C for chorda tympani nerve. A for auditors. P for pyramid. D gestate glide. R for recess, facial recess, and I for insuris fossa. Facial recess is important for the direct access through the medial ear cavity. There is a pyramid. It is a bony projection through which there is opening for stapedius muscle, and behind this there is facial recess. Medial to this there is seventh nerve, and lateral to this chorda tympani nerve, and auditors and fossa insuris are above to the pyramid. Then coming to lateral wall, lateral side, there are trees. On the lateral side of the house, there are trees. Acacia tree. Just remember, A for etic wall, bony plate of the etic wall, and T for tympanic membrane. Coming to the medial wall, just remember window. There is a window, and along with that, personal computers are also there. Window, round window, and oval window, round window, and there is a promontory. Promontory is the bulge of the cochlear basal coil, and there is a canal for the facial nerve, and sinus tympani. Sinus tympani is the medial to the pyramid. And above to this there is ponticulus, and below to this subiculum. Thank you.